Those of you who don't know me, I think I know all of you, but if not, my name is Elizabeth Cromwell. I'm the president and CEO of the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce. We are delighted to have you all here today. And I think based on the time, if you'd like to introduce yourselves in the chat box, that would be great. Go ahead and put your name and organization if you'd like to do that. And in the meantime, I am going to introduce our speaker, Ashley Davies. She's going to be talking about the work of CADRe, which is one of our chamber roundtables. And specifically today, we wanted to talk about the City of Charlottesville's comprehensive planning process, kind of where are we now, and talk more about the work of CADRe. We're going to be recording this meeting is because we do have a lot of chamber members who couldn't be here today that are interested in learning more about this process and maybe picking up some action items from the discussion. And we'll also be sharing it with our board of directors so that everybody is fully in the loop and up to speed on where we are in this process. So as Ashley is talking a little bit about the work of her group that she's involved with at the chamber, I'd love for you all to be thinking about a few questions along the way, mostly like, what do you want the business community to know about this comprehensive planning process? What do you think are the most important takeaways from this conversation? Also, if you have been involved with this process, tell us about any places where you're finding broad agreement, or maybe where there are some potential roadblocks along the way that can be identified. And then finally, if members are interested in taking some action or getting involved in some way, what would be the right way to do that at this point? So with that, I think I will, let's see, pull up Ashley's bio here. Let's see, Ashley is the chair of CADRe, which is the Charlottesville Area Development Roundtable, one of the roundtables associated with the chamber. She has a broad background in urban planning, land use, and public sector planning. She's currently vice president of Riverbend Development. She's also been a land use planner with Williams Mullen, has worked with Atwood Architects, and has been employed also by the City of Charlottesville as a neighborhood planner and zoning administrator. Since I moved here a couple of years ago, I learned the term UVA double who. So he has a master's in urban and environmental planning. And so with that, I would like to turn things over to Ashley. And would you like to share your screen, Ashley? I didn't know if you want to.
Yes, I do have a short PowerPoint presentation, but hi everybody. It's so nice to see all of you virtually today. Lots of familiar faces in the audience. And yeah, I'm just gonna give you, let's see, let me do my screen share and get pulled up here. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, so I wanted to spend just a few minutes in the beginning here giving a little more background on CADRe. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that great introduction. As she mentioned, I'm the current chair. I've been chair of this group for the past 2 years, and the group itself has been in existence a little over 4 years now. It's kind of hard to believe, and definitely would love to get into a conversation with the group after I finish my slides about how we can all collaborate and work together. So the basic mission of our group is we are, as you can see, advocates for Charlottesville's next great places. And we firmly believe in the power of place to have a positive and transformative impact on our lives and on our community. So we have a lot of people involved that are making a positive impact in Charlottesville right now. Who's involved in our group? We are an all volunteer group of, right now our list is right around 134 community members, and we've got a vast amount of professional expertise, design professionals, architects, engineers, planners, landscape architects, attorneys. We've got contractors, developers, finance. It's really a fascinating group that has a lot to offer. So it's been a lot of fun to work with these individuals in the past few years. And prior to the pandemic, our group, our entire membership, we would have meetings quarterly. And then we also had an executive committee that was meeting monthly. I will say over the past year, that has not been the case, but we're definitely ready to get revved back up again. And some of the things that we've really been focused on with our group is, we came together out of a concern that the policies and the approval processes for land development were not leading to the best outcomes in our community. And so we wanted to think about what were the ways that we could make some improvements. So we thought, we've spent time over the past 4 years building relationships and really kind of digging in from top to bottom, looking at large scale items, as Elizabeth mentioned, such as comprehensive planning, our long-term vision for our community, all the way down to the nitty gritty details of the standards and design manual. And so like the play-by-play book on what gets put onto the ground, but also how do we really improve the process of land development, and how do we create a more efficient and functional process in the city that we can all have kind of known outcomes for what we hope to achieve. Here are some of the initiatives, more specific initiatives that we've focused on. I mentioned the comprehensive plan, which is the big ticket item at the moment. I am the CADRe representative on the steering committee of the comprehensive plan. And as I mentioned, for anyone who doesn't know what that really is, laying out the long range vision for our community. And, more specifically, we are very interested in the land use plan, which I'll show a little later in the slides. We are also gearing up for immediately following this comprehensive plan discussion, the city's supposed to launch into a full zoning ordinance rewrite, which of course has both of these have major impacts to both businesses and housing in our community. But as I mentioned, some of the other things we've worked on along the way is the standards and design manual, which is really kind of an engineering guidebook to every detail of design and development. And that was a very intensive process. And we really wanted to focus on how we can really have a more innovative approach and less suburban approach. We have limited land area in Charlottesville, so we want to promote environmental sustainability and really using what land we have most efficiently as possible. Many years back, there was an efficiency study that we participated in that had lots of recommendations about potentially restructuring neighborhood development services. The group that is working on the comprehensive plan, Roadside Harwell, just as you probably saw in the news, just completed the affordable housing plan. We were part of that conversation. We've been at the table for the hiring of several city staff members, and you know, these other three, we would like to get more involved with. We were kind of going strong for several years, so neighborhood engagement. We had some great ideas about how to connect directly with neighborhoods and help connect our expertise with things they might want to learn about. We're always looking for ideas on how to improve the review process and just general relationship building. So the funny thing, and before I launch into this, the funny thing about all that is, like, literally we started 4 years ago and we're like, oh, well, there is this comprehensive plan update coming up. Let's get involved in that. Oh, the city is, they're saying that they want to rewrite their zoning ordinance. Let's get involved in that. And they had also just hired Alex Caprina as the director of neighborhood development services. So we wanted to build that relationship. And I just bring that up. It's humorous to me that, it's literally 4 years later and we're still working on the exact same topics. So definitely takes some patience and persistence in this realm. So, and these are just a couple of slides that I think with this audience, you all kind of realize, just thinking about land development and real estate development is so important to our community. And, one of the primary revenue drivers of Charlottesville taxes, the largest contributor is real estate taxes. So as we think about land use in our community, there's obviously a huge and necessary focus on housing, but one of the things that, I just want to make sure this group is focused on is, what about all the other uses and all the commercial uses that are also necessary for a vibrant community, and just making sure that throughout this process that the city and the consultants are hearing other voices other than mine about what do you want to see in the land use plan, and how do we really promote the business side of Charlottesville as well. So, and so, that obviously gives us more capacity. If we have the real estate taxes, and others, we can work on issues such as housing affordability, which is definitely something that CADRe is interested in and focused on. So, but we know that we can't do it alone. So we're trying to, thus far, we've been thinking about, okay, how do you create a zoning that is, adheres to that land use policy vision, but also kind of, we have maybe a broader framework that makes it easier to add the density that we need in the community. And I know there's folks on this call, such as Charlie Armstrong and others, that know that, we've really limited our, we have limited land resources, limited supply. And I don't know if anybody is looking at, I know Sean published something about the houses going on the market. I mean, it's just crazy right now in Charlottesville. So we really do need to find ways to up our supply and create a more predictable process for adding units on the ground. As I mentioned, this is the current draft future land use map. I know another one's coming out potentially today, this week. So don't view this as this is just the latest draft that I have in my files. But I think it's a very important moment in our community. We've had so much going on, and there's this recognition that with our history in a lot of these yellow areas, you'll learn that those were restricted, and we kind of have this racial reckoning, but also really looking at the city through a lens of equity now. So I think it's just an interesting time for all of us to get involved and while this, this looks like just different colors on a piece of paper, this literally is going to guide the entire rezoning process of our city. So it's hugely important. It's going to determine what goes where and how easy or hard is it to promote businesses in our community, add space, add housing, etc. So definitely. And this May is the month that we're really focused, the consultants really focused on public engagement. So I really just encourage everyone to get involved in that process. And these are just, a couple of my closing thoughts on the work that we've done so far. Like I said, it's been 4 years, and sometimes it feels like we haven't accomplished very much yet. I don't know if other people feel like that too, but it is a marathon and not a sprint. And I'm here to tell you that, things are heating up around the city. So we're going to keep at it. And the fact that, the things that I'm talking about really do impact all of us. And I would really love to hear from this group and others at the chamber, how can we collaborate and work together and make sure that, it's not just Ashley at those meetings kind of sharing my thoughts. I think we all need to kind of put our heads together and figure out what does it actually take to have an effective impact, and how do we come together to be advocates for Charlottesville's next great places. So thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Great overview. I'm sure we have some questions and comments from this group, and some of the earlier questions that I had before you started talking was, just kind of what do you want the business community to know? And you've already shared some of that. You've also touched on you'd like for people to get involved, and feel free if there's a website. I think there is a website where you can sign up to get newsletter updates and things like that. We can share that. And also, I think one thing that wasn't totally clear to me is this process happens, is it every 5 years? And then the zoning piece is later? Does the zoning piece come after the comprehensive plan piece?
Sure, that's a great question. So the comprehensive plan is supposed to be, basically it's updated every 5 years, and that could be as simple as looking at the document and maybe, updating a few statistics and saying, yep, we're good to go for another 5 years. We're right on track to what we've seen in Charlottesville, where, the process started several years ago and got stalled out, and we're still going on with it. So it'll be, maybe a 5-year process before we even get our update complete here in Charlottesville. So yeah, it can be a total rewrite, but then your zoning ordinance is a tool of implementation of that vision. So that's going to really give you all the, nuts and bolts of what you can do on a property. How tall can the building be? What uses go there? How many parking spaces? That sort of thing. But that type of update should typically follow. If you're doing major updates to your land use plan and your comprehensive plan, you want your tools of implementation to match that planning document. So that's how the city is currently approaching it. I think it'll be very interesting to watch how the process unfolds, certainly. And the zoning, we know the comp plan process has been a challenge. Zoning will be an even bigger challenge, getting an entirely new zoning ordinance passed.
And is that process written into the city charter? Do you know? Is that where that?
The zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan?
The comprehensive plan.
That's from the state.
Okay.
Valerie can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know there's some very opinionated and thoughtful people in the group here. I'd be happy to open it up for discussion or any questions from any of you.
And I would just love to hear, I know that similar to our group, that this group has mainly had speakers so far, but I would love to hear from anyone in this group too, like kind of what is the vision going forward for the policy group, just so I can better understand how we might be more collaborative going forward.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And Dick is currently our chair, and he and I are working on kind of framing maybe a tighter process going forward. And I think the goal really for this group is to be kind of the public policy think tank. And I know this is how we've tried to frame it, but we want this group to be a resource for all of the other committees and for our board members. And so it's been a little bit of a slower process in kind of engaging this group with all of the other committees, but we want the chamber to be able to speak with a common voice on all kinds of public policy issues. And in fact, we recently did that on a tourism issue. And so our hope is that we can be a resource for CADRe and for other groups. So ideally, the process would be that if CADRe was interested in having the board, for example, take a position on supporting the comprehensive plan or other issues, that conversation would start here in the public policy group, and that a recommendation would be formed collaboratively to bring to the board of directors for possible endorsement. So that's kind of the vision for the group. We kind of launched this group right before COVID got going, and that's become like a challenge for everybody. But Dick, I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that, but that's kind of the framework that we've been trying to work on.
I think you've covered it, Elizabeth. I mean, we have kind of all been, stalled with COVID and just have been trying to work our way through. And the speakers have been wonderful, but it's time to, find a cause and roll up our sleeves and get involved.
So, and I know a number of you in this call have been very involved with the comprehensive plan. And so that's really one of the reasons why I'm recording this meeting, because I would love to present some of this information to our board of directors and kind of help frame that conversation. We do have a member of our board, Melvin Burris, on the call right now. And several of you have been in the board in the past. So that's kind of what we're trying to head towards. So does anyone want to talk about their experience thus far with the comprehensive planning process? Any broad agreement in certain areas? Any sticky points that we should be aware of or anything like that?
Well, for what it's worth, Elizabeth, I've been engaged in this process since its outset, which would be over 5 years ago. It feels like, I think it was 16 where we started with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission went forward, came up with an idea, did their own map, no consultants, and took it to the then City Council, which said, this isn't what we want, and proceeded to hire a consultant. And now this consultant, who was hired shortly before COVID, was challenged, as this group has been challenged, to have meaningful public engagement And some of the same issues that we have seen in the previous plan are coming forward. In addition, I sense that there is a disconnect of some size between what the Planning Commission, specifically the Planning Commission in 16, but even the Planning Commission today and the City Council want to do. And I think it would be better, or perhaps it would be better for this group to weigh in rather than in favor or opposed to the comprehensive plan, which includes so many components, but to focus on those things that are most important to the business community, which would be the environment, and what CADRe looks at, the built environment that allows enterprise to continue to thrive. To that end, there have been serious questions with regard to building height and with regard to density, as well as accessory dwelling. Most of those are the very discrete elements that I think this group could discuss, those 3 or 4 or 5 items. Others may have others to identify that I think we would be better suited than trying to sign off on an entire comprehensive plan that controls so many different concepts. I don't know what the group thinks of that.
Any thoughts from the group regarding those specific issues, or if there might be other issues to add to that kind of short list of areas to focus on?
I'll jump in. I think Neil's right. Those are particularly density and building height are really important, but also, just want to emphasize generally, reiterate what Ashley said of how important this issue is to the chamber and all of its members. I mean, everything starts with a comprehensive plan. People end up fighting over the zoning a lot and the special use permit process, but once the comprehensive plan is adopted, it sets that framework. And then there's only so much room to make adjustments with the zoning ordinance or individual rezoning applications down the road. So it's really important now for there to be a lot of engagement and people paying attention to what's going on. But I think also just making sure, like Ashley said, that the consultants and the staff and commission and council don't make it all only about affordable housing. While that's obviously very important for our community, I think we need to be reminding them that general economic development and chamber issues are, need to be part of that discussion as well.
I think those are both really great points. And, one thing you might want to consider is just how to make the zoning ordinance more business friendly. And as Valerie said, you kind of set that up in the comprehensive plan and the land use plan. And in recognition that standard zoning practices have done everything that they can to separate uses. And in our modern society, we should be able to move beyond that and recognize that the vitality of our city is really in the mix of uses, and we don't need to spend so much time. There are many uses out there that should not need a special use permit requirement or a rezoning. We should be able to look at CADRe as more at the built form. How do we create beautiful spaces and places, and what goes inside those places should not be of major consequence or should not be a political discussion necessarily. So how do we create a more business friendly environment in those documents?
And I think that seems to be the area that most people focus on. I mean, when in my experience talking with chamber members, they're so busy trying to, make payroll and hire people that they aren't thinking about the big picture. But when it comes to some kind of a zoning snag, that's when they start thinking about this stuff. And I'm sure you've experienced that too. And so yeah, I agree that a more proactive approach to encouraging people to get involved with it is good. You had mentioned, and I think maybe I saw it in one of the other presentations, the regional cooperative approach. Can you talk a little bit about like how this dynamic works as compared to Albemarle County? Anybody actually on the call?
For the comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
So Albemarle, yes. So they undergo a comprehensive plan update process as well. So, you know, you've got UVA, you've got Albemarle County, you've got Charlottesville, and obviously the other surrounding counties as well. So there's a lot of different planning efforts happening. You know, oftentimes
are they complementary to each other?
I think people are certainly trying, and those groups all meet together. And then obviously you also have the TKC, works very hard looking at regional issues as well. Are they all perfectly aligned all the time? I doubt it, but I will say that I know at least for the consultants to the city, they have certainly been directed to look at all the surrounding planning efforts. And so they'll be referencing that to make sure that as we're looking at these updates, we at least know all the pieces of the puzzle. And then it's obviously up to those groups to continue meeting and collaborating to make sure those efforts are well coordinated.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any thoughts about other cities? I'm always sort of looking for best practices too, to share with our chamber members. Are there cities in the country that seem to have this whole thing figured out and who've done a really great job in comprehensive planning that anyone's aware of?
Well, the challenge is, as Ms. Long stated, the comprehensive plan is where everything starts. That doesn't, but also the comprehensive plan doesn't, quote, do anything. There need to be ordinances and strategies and things that happen after that. Comprehensive planning on the level that we're talking about is somewhat of a Commonwealth issue. Other localities and other states have comprehensive plans, but they aren't as mandated by the state, and the regularity of that shift is different in different localities, or different states rather. As Ashley mentioned, some localities literally just change a couple of statistics, and that's all they do for their comp plan update. But you know, it was 10 years ago now. Charlottesville and Albemarle actually spent $1 million of HUD money on a one community plan that was supposed to be in synergy. I would suggest that didn't do as well as it could have. But again, the idea behind comprehensive planning is good. We need to be looking at things comprehensively. It's a 20-year vision. But I don't know that there's a best practices. I actually thought that what the Planning Commission had tried to do on their own, what this consultant is trying to do, both have shortcomings, especially with regard to public engagement. But how do you get people to publicly engage when we're not allowed to publicly be together is an interesting question under COVID. But I think that the key questions that are being asked and the fact that this document's being discussed in this meeting is critically important, and the level of engagement that the community has with the preparation of the comp plan is equally important. But when you get down to the number of special use permits, that's really in the zoning document, which will follow the plan for what it's worth.
And I think, go ahead, Melvin.
Yeah, Ashley, thank you for the presentation. But my question is, could you elaborate a little bit more on the elements that would make a comprehensive plan more friendly to the business world? What are the elements there? What do you change? What do you emphasize?
That's a very good question. One thing that I was just wondering about is if there is any data that the Chamber of Commerce collects, or data coming out any of the roundtables that would be beneficial to the consultants that are working on the comprehensive plan right now. And you know, some of it, as Neil mentioned, it's really, the plan is a collection of statements. So some of it may just be getting some language in there that is business friendly, that you can use as a launching pad as we begin the zoning ordinance rewrite, and as we look at any of the implementation of the plan. So it's, and there is a chapter that's more specific to economic development. You know, there's facilities chapters, there's historic preservation, but yeah, so I think some of it is just making sure that, you know, we might want a smaller group just reading through the chapters and seeing if there are some tweaks to the language that bend it in a good direction. And then also, is there any data that we need to inform, you know, these future decisions? And so I don't know exactly what that might be, but I just don't know if you know, if I don't know that we've been taking a very data-driven approach. So you may have a better understanding of what are the needs of local businesses, or what are the current challenges, what are the barriers that they might be experiencing in Charlottesville. And if we know what that list is, then we might be able to tackle that and make some changes now. But as Neil mentioned, this is a 20-year vision, and it may, you know, at the rate we're going right now, it may not get updated for truly updated for like another decade. So it's a good time to jump in there and at least look through the document and make sure things are pointed in a good direction.
And if I could add to that, I would say one of the most important things is flexibility in the plan. Charlottesville's actually does a fairly good job of not having it be excessively detailed, at least what we've seen so far. In contrast, Albemarle County, theirs is probably one of the most detailed of any in the state. And it ends up in many instances being counterproductive because it's so specific, it acts like a zoning ordinance. And a comprehensive plan is intended to be a general guide to long-term development in the community. It's not binding, but the more detailed it gets, the more it can appear to be binding and function that way. And so I think it's important that it be flexible and allow, you know, the whole reason the state requires them to be updated every 5 years is in recognition of the fact that communities change and grow, and, you know, the market changes and different issues come up that didn't exist 5 years ago, and that they need, you know, it's appropriate to take a fresh look at them every few years. But sometimes you need to be able to do that even in between an update, or like this case when it's been more than 5 years. But if it's too detailed and too prescriptive in terms of what's allowed and what's expected, that can be very harmful for the business community going forward. Because then you might have city councilors who say, wow, we really love this idea of this business in this particular location, and we would support a rezoning, but so sorry, the comprehensive plan says it's not designated for that, and that, you know, this particular issue, you know, has to be done this way, and sorry, you're out of luck. And with this few development potential locations as there are in the community, in the city, that could make or break a business's ability to grow and expand or locate here. So, and in terms of community engagement, I think these consultants that the city's hired have done a tremendous job, particularly given the challenges of COVID. I think Neil's right. That's probably the most challenging issue with the comp plan is getting people to pay attention and reaching groups and individuals and communities who don't get involved or don't even understand what it is, and helping them understand. But it's very challenging, but I've been very impressed with this consultant group's efforts thus far.
I agree.
Is it the consultant group that was hosting the front porch talks that I've been hearing about? Do you all, Ashley or Valerie, have you all heard of any of that? No, there were some front porch discussions, they were calling them, in various neighborhoods around Charlottesville. And I think it was related to—
It could be. I don't know. I haven't heard that specific term, but they are really trying to reach a variety of groups and people that, you know, may not have typically participated in public engagement in the past. So they're trying to be as inclusive as possible, but also following safety protocols for, you know, while they have to. So
thanks. Any other questions for Ashley or for the work of CADRe?
I want to take this opportunity to thank Ashley, especially for her technical skills regarding the review of the standards and design manual. As one who gets to read a lot of things that I don't understand, that manual falls into that category. And having a practitioner review that document was very helpful. And the input that the design professionals of CADRe have given to the process of moving things forward is very helpful to the process and to me understanding exactly what's at stake. So I want to compliment CADRes for their all volunteer efforts and encourage folks to be engaged in the conversation. I know the next meeting, the CVille Plans Together Steering Committee meeting, is May 19th at 5:30. That's available on Zoom, and if you're interested, there'll be presentations of the new material that Sean has posted into the chat. But I will tell you that it does matter when people speak up, not necessarily during the Zoom, but even sending notes along to the consultant, to the Planning Commission, to your city councilors, being engaged in the process. It is a marathon, not a sprint, and we are lucky to have Ashley and the CADRe team engaged in the conversation.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Neil. I think that's great advice. And the date you said is May 19th at 5:30. Is it cvilleplans.org? Is that, I think, the location?
CVillePlansTogether.com is the website. Yeah, you were close. And it is in the chat here. Thanks, Sean. So
great.
For anybody that wants to follow you, I think the month of May will be very busy as they're trying to get as much feedback as possible on the land use plan specifically. And I will say, I think, yeah, the consultants are very responsive and open to feedback. If you go on that website, there's all the information on how to contact them and get them feedback directly, but you can also join in on any of these meetings. And I think even if the chamber wanted something specific with the consultants, if you wanted to have your own meeting with them, we could probably arrange for that as well. Okay, great. And I also wanted to thank Sean for putting some good information and links in the text box. And I'm sure everyone knows this by now, but if not, those little 3 dots that are to the right of your name in the text box, if you click on that, you can save the chat box. So you can save that information that Sean included there. So thank you for that. And okay, well, I think unless anyone has any further thoughts on this specific topic, I'm gonna stop talking for a couple of seconds, and if not, we'll just close a little early with a couple of last thoughts.
Actually, if I ask one question?
Of course, yes.
So I am Cecilia. I own my own business and I am a massage therapist. And there are surprisingly about 100 of us in town who own our own businesses and rent and look for affordable office space that usually our needs are small. So typically we end up in places that are perhaps, we're housing. Mine, for example, was at one point a house. And it's in the zone that is slated to could be easily redeveloped for housing. And I can't work in open office space. I don't want to work from home. I don't really want to go to people's houses. So I just wonder if there's any thought being put around individual office space for truly small businesses in this plan. If anybody knows, or in the comp plan.
So you're talking about not co-working space, but individual small office space.
Right, because obviously as a massage therapist, co-working space is not feasible.
I'm sorry, I missed that part. So Ashley, do you have any comment on that particular issue?
Unfortunately, I really could not hear what the speaker was saying.
Yeah, I think she was saying that she is a massage therapist, I think, if I understood correctly, and is working out of a house right now, and is shared a concern about office space in that format becoming unavailable with a new comprehensive plan that might encourage, other types of development. And is there anything in the plan that might accommodate those kinds of very small businesses that don't want co-working space, but office space? I hope I got that more or less correct.
Yeah, we hear a lot about affordable housing, but people don't talk about affordable office space. And I think that's critical.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that to quote Valerie, what she said earlier is we want to really, in the comprehensive plan, promote as much flexibility as possible. So there are certain things in the zoning ordinance right now that will allow certain types of home businesses in the residential district. But we also, as Neil said, we want to be looking at building heights and really allowing ourselves to do more with the remaining land that we have in Charlottesville, while also obviously being sensitive to neighborhoods, historic resources, et cetera. But we could certainly do a lot more to allow for more building mass and also allow for more use types within the districts that we currently have. But there's certainly nothing in there that would disallow these types of home businesses that are great.
No, that's my point though, is people don't want to work out of their homes. They actually want offices outside their homes.
Okay. Yeah.
And
so that
those affordable offices right now are in what used to be the housing stock in downtown Charlottesville on Park and East High.
Yeah.
And for massage therapists, personally, we don't really want to work in medical office buildings or high rises either.
Yeah, well, I don't think that there are changes that are really going to happen in those specific areas, because those are generally the historic districts. So I think a lot of that area will remain similar to what it is right now. But I do think in general, if we can stop restraining the supply of housing and putting so many obstacles in the way to land development in general, then it gives all of us a lot more options. And I'm sure everyone's looking at the paper and the real estate markets, you know, you see these tiny houses now listed for $810,000 in Charlottesville. Like everything is crazy right now. So we really do need to make some changes. So like you said, we can have equitable solutions, and we want to keep people like you in Charlottesville, and we want to have these services available. So we need to stop constraining everything.
Well, thank you for that comment and input. And you've given us a lot to think about, and you've given us a little bit of a idea of the scope of, you know, this huge effort. And also you've given us information about how chamber members can voice opinions, how the community can get involved, and also this meeting coming up on May 19th. So I think we have a lot of good actionable information coming out of this meeting. I will be sure to share it with our chamber members and with our board members. And I think we might be just about closed out for the meeting. Dick, did you want to share any final thoughts, or anybody else?
I just wanted to say, Ashley, thank you very much. It was good to hear from you, and we appreciate what you all are doing and up to. And we'll see how we can collaborate together when we get back together in the fall.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. I really, it is good to see you. I'll be even happier when I can see you in person again.
Well, and the chamber is mostly led by a group of volunteers that chair these committees and are deeply engaged. And so, Ashley, we're super grateful for all your work, and all the rest of you for coming today. So thank you for your time, and we will reconnect soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye.